We continue now at the top of Daf Tesam and Beis Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 9b. The Brisa is listing off ways that Gittei Nashim and Shechrui Avadim are similar, and the Brisa says all documents ha'olim be'erchos shalov de kochavim. All documents that are drawn up in the courts, in the non-Jewish courts, even though they're signed by non-Jews, kasher, and they're going to be kosher, chutz mi Gittei Nashim v'Shechrui Avadim, except for Gittei Nashim and Shechrui Avadim. That is a third way that Get Isha and Shechrui Avadim, that they're similar. Rashi says ha'olim be'erchos shalov de kochavim shenasu ashtars la'idei bezin shalov de kochavim. Again, the documents were made through a court of idol worshippers, shechosmein chosmin shabesochu, and the signatures in the documents are of de kochavim. And why are they kosher? The dina de malchusa dina, there's a general rule. Dina de malchusa dina, the law of the land is considered the law. And even though the person giving and the person receiving are Jewish, still the document will be good. Chutz mi Gittei Nashim, except for Gittei Nashim, the labene krisos ninu, because non-Jews are not part of they are not part of the halachas of Gittin. Ho v'lo shaychi b'toras Gittin v'kiddushin, because they're not part of Gittin and kiddushin in terms of halachic divorce and marriage. Aval al hadinin itzdavu b'nei Noach, but when it comes to, let's say, monetary issues, so the Bnei Noach, or issues related to the courts, so there the Bnei Noach are commanded, they're part of those halachas, and that's why in general the documents are kosher, just not by Gittei Nashim and Shechrui Avadim. V'chein Shechrui Avadim, and also by Shechrui Avadim, it's not going to be good if it's in the non-Jewish courts. The v'chol psula doraisa, because in terms of all doraisa disqualifications, shaveh shichrur legerisha, the shtar shichrur and gerisha are the same. The gamrin and la, we learn how to gzer shava la, and this gzer shava was mentioned on the previous Amud. And the Brisa continues, now according to Rabbi Meir, there's actually four ways. There's a fourth way that Get Isha and Shtar Shechra are similar. Ha'omer tein get zeli ishti. Let's say a person says, give this get to my wife. Ushtar Shechra zeli avdi, or give this Shtar Shechra to my Eved. Ratza lachzor b'shneim yachzor divrei Rabbi Meir. By both of those, if the person wants to retract, he is able to retract. Rashi explains, Ratza habal lachzor b'shneim kodim shenasnu ashliach. Let's say the shliach hasn't given it to the woman. The shliach hasn't given it to the Eved, so the husband or the master is able to retract. The yachzor, he can retract. To kosav Rabbi Meir, the reason is as follows. Rabbi Meir holds, hefsid v'chovhein la'osan shenishluchu lehen. This is not considered something that is a merit for them. Getting the divorce document or getting the shtar shechra is not considered a total benefit. There is a downside. Ve'ein chavin la'adam ela b'fanav. There's a rule that you're not allowed to do something for somebody not in front of him if it's a situation where there is a negative, there is a downside. A person cannot automatically become a shliach for someone else to do something on that person's behalf if it's not something that's completely beneficial. Unless the person was directly appointed a shliach by that person, that's already as if it's in front of him, that would be okay. And Rashi continues, "V'Rabbanan pligi oled Rabbi Meir b'mas nisan." The Rabbanan actually argue on Rabbi Meir about this in the Mishnah. V'Amrin, they say the v'shichra ein yachol achzor, that even though by get isha, so in that situation it's possible to retract, but by freeing the slave it's not possible to retract, because going free as a slave is considered a total benefit to the slave. The moment the shliach takes the shtar shechra, he can take it on behalf of the Eved even without being appointed by the Eved. Mishanimsor li'adzeh, the moment it's given over to the shliach, the Eved goes free. V'Afal pi shelo asoha Eved shliach, even though the Eved didn't appoint him a Mishum de Kasavri, because the Rabbanan hold Zechusu le'Eved sheyotzi mitachas rabba lecheres. It is a benefit. It's a total benefit for an Eved to go free. V'zachin lo la'adam shelo b'fanav, and you're allowed to give someone a benefit even if he's not present. Da'anon sahadi denichole denahava hayshluchu lahachi, because we can be witnesses. We testify. It's obvious to us that it would be beneficial for this person to be a shliach for the Eved. And the Gemara says B'shlama l'Rabbanan. I understand according to the Rabbanan minyada l'mu'utei had Rabbi Meir. The reason why the Brisa says a number in three ways, Get Isha similar to Shtar Shechra, is to exclude Rabbi Meir's case in three ways and not in four ways, meaning not Rabbi Meir's example. El Rabbi Meir minyana l'mu'utei mai. But according to Rabbi Meir, where it's four ways, what's that number four excluding? What is the case where we may have thought that they're similar, but they are not similar? And the Gemara says l'mu'utei hadatani, it's to exclude the following Brisa. The Brisa says Edim she'ein yodim lachsom. Let's say you have Edim that don't know how to sign. Mekarin lahem niyar cholach, so you can tear for them some blank paper. Umemalim esakaroim dio, and then they can fill up the area you teared, again like almost like a stencil. They can fill it up with ink, and that's how they can sign. So Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, "B'amed devarim amurim." When is that true? B'gittei nashim. That's true only by Get Isha. Aval shechrui avadim ushar kol ashtaros. But when it comes to shechrui avadim or other kinds of documents, sim yodin likros v'lachsam chosmin. If they know how to read and sign, so then they can sign. V'im lavein chosmin. But if they don't know how to, they're not allowed to sign. This leniency, it only applies when it comes to Get Isha. That's what Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says. And the Gemara notes, Kriya man dekar shmei, whoever mentioned anything about reading. We're talking about Edom that don't know how to sign, and then Rav Shimon Gamliel says that if they know how to read and sign, so then they're allowed to sign. Why is he talking about reading? The Gemara says there are words missing in this brayso, and it should read as follows: Edom she'in yodin likros koron lefnein v'chosmin. If Edom don't know how to read, so then we read in front of them and they can sign. V'she'in yodim lachso mekaron lahem. And then if they don't know how to sign, so then we tear paper for them, again create like a kind of a stencil. So if you understand it that way, the brayso does begin by talking about reading, and so that's why Rav Shimon ben Gamliel responds, when it comes to other stars, they have to know how both to read and how to sign. And Rashi explains, Mekaran lehem niyar cholok, we tear for them paper. Now Rashi understands that it's not exactly like a stencil. Misartin v'roshman b'sakin al haniyar. He says you actually scratch onto the paper with a knife, as Shemosa Edom, the names of the Edom, uboin ha'edim umemalim esakarim dio. The Edom come and they fill up the teared spot with ink, and Tosas actually describes it more as a typical type of stencil. And Rashi continues, Begitei Nashim. Rav Shimon Gamliel says we're lenient only by Gitei Nashim. Why? Mishum takonas agunos, because we don't want her to be chained in the marriage. Shemayir tzazeh megarish lefarish bayah. Maybe this person divorcing her wants to go out to sea, and that's why he wants a divorce. We want to make sure that that's effective. Or mesukon, or maybe his life is in danger. Shirotza shalot yizakik liyavam, and he wants to make sure that she doesn't have to do yibam. And so again, when it comes to Gitei Nashim, we are lenient in this fashion, but not by other documents. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Gemara says, V'su lekar, there are no other similarities between Gerisha and Shtar Shichr. Va'ika, but isn't there the following? Ha'omer tenu get zel ishti, Shtar Shichr zel avdi v'meis. If a person says, give this get to my wife, or give this Shtar Shichr to my slave, and he dies, the halach is, lo yitnu la'achar misa, they cannot be given after the person's death. That's a similarity between Gerisha and Shtar Shichr. Tenu mana leploni v'meis, if he says, give a mana, give a certain amount of money to so-and-so, and he dies, so yitnu la'achar misa, so that's called a matnas shchimera, divrei shchimera kechsuvin v'chimesurin dami, and there we say it is able to be given after his death. And so the Gemara answers, Kikotani milsa delese b'shtaros. When we're listing similarities, it's only similarities that don't exist by other shtaros. However, milsa deise b'shtaros, but similarities that exist by other shtaros, lo katani, that we're not listing. And this idea of lo yinu lachar misa, that exists by other shtaros as well. The shalach Ravin mishmei de Rabbi Avo, because Ravin sent in the name of Rabbi Avo. Havu yodin, you should know, shashalach Rabbi Lazar legola mishum rabbeinu, that Rabbi Lazar sent to the exile in the name of our rabbi, that's in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He said the following halacha, shchimei rasha amar kisvu tenumana leploni v'meis. If a shchimei says, write down and give a mana to Ploni and he dies, this is slightly different than the case above. The case above is just tenumana leploni v'meis, but here the case is kisvu tenumana leploni v'meis. If he says that, ein kosvin v'nosin, we don't write it up and give it, shema lo gomer la'aknoso el v'shtar, because maybe he really only wanted to make the kinyan with a shtar. Maybe he wasn't using the principle of divrei shchimei kechsuvin v'chimesurin dami, ve'in shtar la'achar misan. The halach is that there's no shtar after death, and so therefore you see this halach applies by other documents as well, and so we don't list it as a similarity between Gerisha and Shtar Shichr. And Rashi explains, Lo yitnu la'achar misa, again by Gerisha and by Shtar Shichr, you can't give it after the person dies. Va'afilu rabbanan de'amri shechruri avodim zechusu. Now even according to the rabbanan who say that freeing a slave is considered a zechus, it's considered a total benefit. V'zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav, and so we should say the principle of zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav, and the moment the shliach gets the Shtar Shichr, the eved should go free while the master's alive. So Rashi says that when the shliach takes the Shtar Shichr, there is a zechiyah over there that the owner is not able to retract. Miu, nevertheless, modu rabbanan, the rabbanan admit that as long as the Shtar Shichr didn't actually reach the eved, lo havim mishukhr, he doesn't actually go free. V'kevan de miskadim, and since the owner died before the shtar reached the eved, sulo have shichr, so the freedom is not considered an effective freedom. The nafkale reshusim v'nei v'chayla l'reshus yorshim. At that point in time, the owner is no longer the owner; he has died, and now the eved belongs to the yorshim. Now this Rashi is difficult because if it is a zechus, really Tosas notes the moment the shliach gets it, the eved actually should go free. Tosas also point out that Rashi seems to retract later on, and Tosas offer a slightly different explanation to this Gemara. Tenu mana leploni, and then it said that if a person says give a mana to Ploni, give money to so and so, and then he dies, that can be given la'achar misa, as we said, divrei shchimera kechsuvin v'chimesurin dama, because there is a rule that when a shchimera says a statement, makes a pronouncement, that's as if it's already been written and been given, and that's why in that situation the gift can even be given la'achar misa. Tetikun rabbanan shemet titarif daitola b'chol yom lo yamuftach sheyekaimu devarim. The Chacham made a takana that we want the shchimera to be comfortable that which he says is going to be taken care of, and in this way he won't his illness is not going to get worse. And then the Gemara said that when it comes to this halach of not giving it la'achar misa, that applies to other shtaris as well. And Rashi explains that v'hamilsa isa b'shar shtaris. This does exist by other shtaris. Shemasar shtar matana l'shlucha. For example, if a person gave a shtar matana to a shliach litno la'achar to give to someone else, v'meis and he died, lo yiten la'achar misa. The shtar cannot be given after death. Tahalo akni layara delimti shtar liyadi. Because in this case, it was clear that the kinyan is only taking place when the shtar reaches his hand. V'hishaita pakale rishusay. And at that point, he died. It's too late. In a case where you're using a shtar, it's not clear that he wants to use the principle that the Rabbanan apply by Shchimera, that divrei Shchimera kechsuvin v'chemesurin damu. But the Gemara continues, Vayika Lishma, aren't there other similarities between Gerisha and Shtar Shichra, for example, that both have to be written Lishma? B'Shalom l'Rabba, and the Gemara says, I understand according to Rabba, Hainu Molech u'Mevi. Lishma really is included in Molech and Mevi, because the reason we say B'fanei Nechtam is because of Lishma. Ela l'Rava Kasha, but according to Rabba it's difficult, why don't we count Lishma as well? V'su bein l'Rabba, bein l'Rava, and furthermore, whether you're following Rabba or Rava, Ha'ika Mechuber, isn't there a halacha Mechuber that you cannot write it on something that's attached to the ground? That's a halacha that's true by both Gerisha and Shtar Shichra. And the Gemara says to that, Ki katani psula d'Rabbanan. Everything we're listing as similarities are all d'Rabbanan disqualifications. D'oraisa lo katani. We're not listing things that are d'oraisa. That's why these issues are not listed. The Gemara says, but what about if it's drawn up in the non-Jewish courts, which again is a dipsula d'oraisu, that's a psula on a d'oraisa level, v'katani, and that is listed as a similarity. You see, we are listing d'oraisas. And the Gemara says, be'edei mesira, no, when we're talking about these documents drawn up in the courts of the Ovdei Kochavim, it's talking about where we're using edei mesira. The edei chasima, the psul that they're creating, is actually only a psul d'Rabbanan. Och Rebbe Lazar, because it follows Rebbe Lazar, Diamar edei mesira karti, who says edei mesira karti, and so therefore in terms of the get or the shtar shichra, really it's good, it's effective, because of the edei mesira. The problem over here is, since it has non-Jewish signatures, it's what we referred to earlier as mezuyif mitocho, that's a psul midrabanan, and so again, we're only listing psul midrabanan, we're not listing psulim that are midoraisa. But the Gemara continues, V'amidah katani seifa, but from the fact that it says at the end over there, it says Rabbi Shimon Omer af elu ksherin. Rabbi Shimon says that these are kosher, meaning when they're drawn up in the courts of the Ovdei Kochavim, so and they're signed by Ovdei Kochavim, it's kosher. V'yamar Rabbi Zeir says Yared Rabbi Shimon l'shitasu shel Rabbi Lazar. Why does Rabbi Shimon say it's kosher if it has non-Jewish signatures? Because Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Lazar. V'yamar Eidem Mesira Karti, who says Eidem Mesira Karti. Mechlal the Tanakama Savar Lo. That sounds like it's only Rabbi Shimon that's following Rabbi Lazar, and the Tanakama are not really following Rabbi Lazar of Eidem Mesira Karti. That sounds like it is a psul midoraisa. And Rashi explains, Af elu gitei nashim, even gitei nashim ksherim b'chosmen ovdei kochavim. Again, Rabbi Shimon says they're kosher if it's signed by non-Jews. V'yam Rabbi Zer yor Rabbi Shimon v'yachshulu be'edem esiru cheshakazvu sofer Yisrael. Rabbi Shimon's talking about when it's written by a scribe who's Jewish, but since you have edem esiru, it's going to be kosher even though it's signed by non-Jews. And again, mechlal the Tanakama savar lo karti edem esiru. That sounds like the Tanakama are saying that edem esiru are not effective. El edei chasima, you have to have edei chasima. Upsula doraisu, and when you have a situation where it's signed by non-Jews, that's actually a psul on a d'oraisa level, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Amud Aleph.